Okay, so for the fingerspelling final, just some general notes because I'm giving them to a bunch of people, and I figure it'd be better to give them all at the same time. That way, I don't have to retype the same thing over and over again. Um, Good work generally for everybody. Um, the it wasn't an easy assignment. It looked deceptively easy, but a couple things I want you to think about um, and compare it to all of your ASL classes that you've taken so far. What is it we're looking for? When I took Spanish, when I took Japanese, when I took any other language, a spoken or written language, the measure of knowledge was different than with ASL because with a spoken or written language, as long as you have the words written correctly with the right endings, the right tense, the right all that, if it's a little slow, it's still correct. But with ASL, keep in mind that fluency, that flow, is the grammar. You might sign the right sign with each sign, but if you don't put them together correctly, they're kind of meaningless, right? Because every sign connects to another sign. Whole phrases are grouped together in how you're producing them. So, um, those are all separate signs. It's got to be. Now I don't remember what I signed. Let me look for. Okay. Um, right. So for last weekend for Super Mario Brothers, it has to be 59,930,000. Right. You can't separate those to be right. We lose meaning if they're not joined together. So keep in mind that with all ASL videos, whenever you submit them, especially now as you're doing with the upper division courses, it's about the phrasing, it's about the speed. And the only way to get there is to do it so many times that you're sick of it. Not that you're tired of it, it's different, that you're sick of it. If you can do it in your sleep, if you, it's just, it's got to be natural. We need that flow. So always aim for that kind of fluency, for lack of a better. Um, that also means that that level of practice means that you're smooth each phrase, and you can break up phrases like with each movie. Here's what last weekend it earned this. Here's what it earned. Here's what the third movie earned. If you're watching your own video and it's choppy or you're hesitant, what I see in that is I'm not sure what's next, and that means you're not prepped. And especially when you're talking about a final exam, you want to go for as fluent as possible, and that's why this was very short, with the whole intent of just focus on each individual one. I will also recommend this: um, practice the last one the most, because normally what happens is we start out very ASL, and by the time we get to the last thing you say, it's switched to English. That's how our brain works. Like, it gets tired. A big part of ASL classes is getting to the point where we can keep that going longer, keeping our signing stamina going, the ASL translation, because we just default back to English because our brain goes, why am I doing this weird thing with ASL? I want to do what I know. Okay, so we always end up practicing the first part over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and the last part a couple times. Try to reverse that, or at least balance it so you're doing it equally. Make sure the C's are clear, like 100, 200. Even if you're doing 100, 200, the shorthand version. If you do like 5, and it looks like you just sort of relax the hand, and try to make it a C. or make it crisp. Okay. And what's nice is it follows. Remember, it follows how we say it in English. So all you have to do is, if you can say it in English quickly, you should be able to sign it quickly. Um, ba, 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 ba. With titles, always fingerspell the entire title. Then you can sign it if there is vocab for that. Like Super Mario Bros. BROS period. You can add in something like that after you fingerspelled it, but fingerspell the whole title first. Evil Dead Rise. Just because there are so many different ways a title can be translated, different orders. Fingerspell it first, even if it's long. I'm sorry. Like Return of the Jedi. How would you sign that in ASL? Jedi's back. That's not what when we see the English title. So you need to fingerspell the title first and then sign it. Okay. Spacing. When we're talking about lists of things, there are a couple different options. You can do boom, 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 right? 5, right? From boom, 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 boom. And you can even rank them this one, this, work your way down. You could do it first, second, third, fourth, fifth. But by placing it in space, that will make it super clear. What? Or first, watch your video. Make sure that you stay in frame. You don't want number 1 to be up here and your finger spelling all this stuff and we can't see it. Right? It's one of the reasons why having filming in portrait is really tough, because it limits. You can't do side to side. So you only can do top to bottom. Also make sure, look at how I'm framing this. The top frame is just above my head. Don't put your face in the center. You're never going to use this space. One sign in 100, 150, are you going to go up this high? But there's a lot of times where I'm signing here. I'll fingerspell here. I'll say now, and you can't see that sign. So ASL teachers will take off points if you sign something out of frame. They have to, because it's like you left the paragraph off. If you submitted an English paper and didn't include the conclusion or the introduction, you lose points because you didn't do that. Same thing applies to signs. If your signs go off, sorry, you didn't give it to me, and I need to have it to grade it. So that, work with your camera. If you don't like watching yourself sign, you got to figure out a way of doing it. I don't like watching myself, but I will watch myself as I record to make sure I don't go beyond the frame. So it's a purely practical thing. I'm watching it to make sure I'm spacing it correctly. It's especially if you are, like, if I'm referring to a slide here, but my natural inclination is it's here because in front of me, it's to this side of the screen. So I've had to sort of train myself to point in the correct direction. So just be aware, if your camera is one that reverses, you may have to do something different. If the words that are written on either, your clothing or in the background are reversed, you're going to have to play with that to get used to the camera. Usually there's a button you can hit to switch that. So again, I come back to what is the measure of confidence and skill with ASL? What is the instructor looking for in each video? Flow is important. You can't separate sentences, separate phrases. They all have to flow. And you can only get to that flow if you're confident in what you're signing. So practice each little phrase. Okay. We can even deal with slow finger spelling as long as it's a steady pattern. But if it's broken up in between, I didn't spell my name. I gave you a couple of individual letters. It's kind of like a ransom note cut out of magazines. So flow is important. Keep that in mind. That's why we ask you to take these and record them on your own so that you can take as much time as you need. Because remember, ASL in the end is not about how much time you spent on it. It's about, did you in the moment produce it smoothly, correctly? For some assignments, they might be really quick. You can dash it off in 15 minutes, and for other assignments, it may take days of getting it just right. So smoothness is important.